Right, let us come to the urgent question. Secretary of State for Defence, James Cartlidge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To ask Secretary of State for Defence if he will make a statement on the impact of the government's Chagos negotiations on the UK-US defence relationship.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I congratulate the honourable gentleman on securing this urgent question. The Secretary of State has asked me to respond on behalf of the Department. On the 3rd of October, the UK and Mauritius reached an historic agreement to secure the important UK-US military base on Diego Garcia, which plays a crucial role in regional and international security. The agreement secures the effective operation on the joint facility on Diego Garcia well into the next century. The agreement is strongly supported by our closest friends and allies, including the United States. It has been supported by all relevant US departments and agencies following a rigorous scrutiny process. This base is a key part of UK-US defence relationships as it enables the United Kingdom and the United States to support operations that demonstrate our shared commitment to regional stability, provide rapid response to crises and counter some of the most challenging security threats we face. The President of the United States applauded the agreement. I quote him directly, "It is a clear demonstration that through diplomacy and partnership, countries can overcome long-standing historical challenges to reach peaceful and mutually beneficial outcomes." Several other countries and organisations, including India, the African Union, the UN Secretary-General and others, have welcomed and applauded this historic political agreement. Our primary goal throughout these negotiations, which started over 2 years ago under the previous government, was to protect the joint UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. There will be clear commitment in the treaty to robust security arrangements, including arrangements preventing the presence of foreign security forces on the outer islands so that the base can continue to operate securely and effectively. The operation of the base will continue unchanged, with strong protections from malign influence. For the first time in 50 years, the base will be undisputed and legally secure. Continued uncertainty would be a gift to our adversaries. This is why the agreement has been welcomed by all parts of the US system and other critical regional security partners. Agreeing the deal now on our terms meant that we were able to secure strong protections that will allow the base to operate as it has done. We look forward to engaging with the upcoming US administration on this and many other aspects of the UK-US special relationship. Mr Speaker, finally, you can be reassured that the long-term protection of the base on Diego Garcia has been the shared UK and US priority throughout. This agreement secures its future. We would not have signed off on an agreement that compromised any of our security interests or those of the US and our allies and partners.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for granting this urgent question. At a time when we face the most challenging military threats for years, surely our top priority should be to preserve the strongest possible US-UK relations, given this is so vital to our national security. And yet, it appears that the government is seeking to agree a deal surrendering the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands before President Trump is formally in post. However, we know the new US administration are concerned about the government's deal because presumptive nominee US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the deal, and I quote, poses a serious threat to US national security interests, and also suggested, and I quote further, that it would provide an opportunity for Communist China to gain valuable intelligence on this US naval support facility. So let's be clear, Mr Speaker, our military base on Diego Garcia is a vital strategic asset for the UK in the Indian Ocean and critical to our presence and posture in the Indo-Pacific region. In particular, it is an especially important base for the United States, and we believe that anything that damages their defence posture, particularly in relation to China, also undermines our national security. And now we understand that the new Mauritius government has launched a review of the deal, Mr Speaker. So can I therefore ask the Minister to confirm if it really is the case that their policy is to try and rush through their Chagos deal before President Trump's inauguration? Does he not see how that would be hugely disrespectful to the new administration and President Trump's democratic mandate? But specifically, given we now know that it's common for the MOD to state the cost of overseas bases, will he be transparent and finally tell us how much we're going to have to pay to rent back the vital military base we currently own? And finally, Mr Speaker, whilst we would prefer the government to cancel the whole deal, at the very least, will he pause any further ratification until the new US administration is in place and the Mauritius government have concluded their review?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his questions and for his strong focus on this. I think he has a bit of amnesia from when his government that he served of started these negotiations, held 11 rounds of these negotiations. It took a Labour government to conclude the negotiations, but we have done so in the best interest of our national security and securing the national security concerns of our closest allies. It would not have been possible to secure a deal and the support of the United States if all parts of the US security apparatus were not in support of this deal. As a former defence minister, he will know that to be true regardless of the politics he must play today. He asked two quick questions. We intend to continue our dialogue with both the new Mauritian government and with our friends in the United States. He will be aware, of course, that it is illegal under US law for us to trade directly with the new administration until they come in place, but we will continue to have dialogue with our US and Mauritian friends. And when it comes to costs, I'm surprised that he's asking this question as a former defence minister. He will know that it's quite usual for us to declare operating and running costs of overseas bases, but it would compromise our operational security and the long-term relationships if we were to declare the government-to-government payments for overseas bases. But we have declared the operational and running costs of our overseas bases. We'll continue to do so in relation to parliamentary questions, but detailing that security payment for government-to-government interactions is not something that this government does. It wasn't something that his government did either.
Chair of the Select Committee, Tanmanjeet Singh Dhesi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The UK-US base on Diego Garcia is of great significance in terms of defence as well as in terms of our strategic international significance. And it's clear that steps must be taken to ensure its legal status is secure in the future. And of course, the voice of the Chagosians must be central within any future arrangement. However, it has been reported that President-elect Trump has reservations with the proposed treaty, and the newly elected Mauritius Prime Minister Ram Ghulam has ordered a review into the treaty. So can the Minister advise what further representations have been made to both of our partners to ensure that we have the support of our international partners?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. He's absolutely right. The continuing operation of Diego Garcia is in UK and US national security interests, which is why this deal secures that operation. I congratulate Dr. Ramagoolan on his election. In a letter to the Prime Minister on the 15th of November, he noted his commitment to completing the negotiations. Jonathan Powell was in Mauritius this week to start that process.
Calum, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We and all others who care about the resolution of this issue are deeply disappointed in the way we've been led to this point. 11 rounds of negotiations under the Conservatives and more under the new government. Just 4 weeks ago, the Foreign Secretary presented his deal to the House. Now the new President-elect and the new Prime Minister of Mauritius are expressing doubts. Is it not striking and shocking that this has unravelled so quickly? Does the Minister agree with me that whatever happens next, it's vital that the voices of the Chagosians are finally injected into this process and that they are able to fulfil their right of self-determination? Whatever lies ahead in these talks, we on these benches have strongly argued that all treaties should come before the House before signing. I believe members of the opposition, or the now government bench, including 2 sitting there today, supported this in the past. So will the Minister commit to allowing meaningful opportunities for parliamentarians to examine the detailed proposals, including necessary assurances on elements of the deal relating to our national security, before anything is signed?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. We will be following the normal process in treaty ratification. That is, after signature, it will come before this House with details given to colleagues able to have full parliamentary scrutiny, as would be expected as part of the normal process. It's right he raises the Chagosians, and my colleague who sits next to me here, the Minister, has been meeting with Chagosian communities in the UK. He will continue to meet with Chagosian communities, and this government deeply regrets the way that they were treated and removed from the islands originally, which is one of the reasons why we've made such an important part of the future for the islands as part of the relationship with the Chagosians that the Foreign Secretary has outlined to the House previously.
Mark Seward.
Mr. Speaker, Can the Minister confirm that the vital UK-US base on Diego Garcia, that its operations will continue completely unaffected by the terms of this deal? And separately, Mr. Speaker, will he also confirm that our commitment to the Falkland Islands, to Gibraltar and the rights of the people there to self-determine remain completely unaffected by this deal?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and let me say, as the First Minister from the new government to visit the Falklands, I was able to say very clearly that the Falkland Islands are British for as long as they would like to be. That was a message that I gave to the Gibraltarians, that Gibraltar is British for as long as the people of Gibraltar want to be, and I can confirm to the honourable gentleman that this deal secures the future of the UK-US base on Diego Garcia, something that our US allies have supported.
Sir Julian Lewis.
Which is more important for Britain's vital security, to have the approval of the outgoing American president or the approval of the incoming one? And what is there to prevent China, with Mauritius's agreement, putting listening outposts on other islands that could compromise the security of Diego Garcia?
I thank the right honourable gentleman for his questions there. There are very specific arrangements in the treaty that prevent any foreign power putting security apparatus, security forces on any of the outgoing islands. He'll be able to see that when the treaty becomes for this House. In relation to support for the United States, we would not have signed an agreement if it weren't being supported by our US friends. This deal secures the operation of the UK-US base on Diego Garcia well into the next century, and I expect that when everyone look at the detail of the deal, they'll be backing it as well.
Peter Lamb.
Mr. Speaker, Chagos belongs to the Chagosians. A quarter of the global population of Chagos lives within my constituency. I'm aware of statements made by the ministers they have met with representatives of the Chagosian community. I do not know which representatives those are, but I know of representatives within my constituency who have not yet been consulted. Will the Minister agree that before any further dialogue is taking place, that they will engage with the community representatives fully within my constituency?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. My colleague, the Foreign Office Minister beside me, has met with a range of representatives from the Chagosian community and will continue to do so as this process continues. I know that he would welcome a conversation with the honourable gentleman to make sure that dialogue is as complete as it can be.
Sir Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, can I ask, what's the rush? Why is the honourable gentleman in such a hurry to get this done? Can I suggest it would be to the government's advantage, if their case is so strong, that they allow this House to debate the agreed text in public before it is signed? And can I also suggest that it stretches incredulity for him to tell the House there have been no discussions at all with the incoming administration? Can he at least tell the House what informal dialogue there is with the incoming American administration about what their view really is, and can he report that to the House, please?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his question. As a long-standing member of this House, he'll be familiar with how treaties are debated and agreed by this House. After signature, they will come forward for ratification. This process was started a number of years ago by the government that he supported at the time. 11 rounds of negotiation have taken place. We've secured a deal that is in support of the UK and US base on Diego Garcia that will continue its operation well into the next century. When he and others see the detail of that deal, I'm certain people will back it.
Dave Dougal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to imagine anything from that dispatch box over the last 5 months that survived contact with reality, and this is no different. Because in the tripartite relationship between the United States, the United Kingdom and Mauritius, 2 of those partners now have doubts about this arrangement. So what is the unseemly rush about? Because in the tension between national security and the human rights of the Chagosians, this government, as usual, has managed to reconcile neither.
Well, I'm not certain the SNP record on national security really gives him the platform that he's pretending to on this one here. However, what I will say to him, because I recognise that actually he's trying to make a serious point around this deal, is that when this deal is signed, it will come before the House in the usual way. That will allow parliamentarians of all parties to look at the detail of the deal and to take a judgment, and the House will vote in the usual way, as it will do on other treaties.
Sir Desmond Swain.
What is it in particular that the new regime in Mauritius has doubts about. It's that they want more money, isn't it?
I thank the gentleman for his question. It's quite normal, I think, for any new government to look again at a deal signed by their immediate predecessors. But the reason I say that is when they look at the deal, the detail of this deal will be convincing, just as it will be for our US friends, because it's a deal backed by the entirety of the US security apparatus that secures the future operation of this UK-US base well into the future, dealing with the uncertainty that existed around that base up until the point of this deal being made. I'm certain he will back the deal, hopefully, when the details come before the House. Let's see.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The presentation of what the American administration believes is a fantasy. Joe Biden is going. In fact, many think he's gone already. I have been contacted by very senior officials and advisers from the incoming Republican administration, and every single one of them is appalled at this deal. They know the leasehold agreement will not survive, just as the deal with China over Hong Kong didn't survive. Hasn't the time come for the government to admit this is a rotten deal for the UK, a rotten deal for America, and an even worse deal for the Chagosians? And if you care so much about the sovereignty of the Falklands being in the hands of the Falkland Islanders, why not have a referendum of the Chagosians and ask them to settle who should have sovereignty over those islands?
Yeah. Well, as someone who's been in the Falklands recently, let me say that whipping up uncertainty of the future of the Falklands is not helpful for the security of the Falkland Islanders. Let's be absolutely clear. The Falklands are British for as long as the people of the Falkland Islands want to be British. When it comes to this deal, I'm certain that when the detail of the deal has been put before this House and before our US friends and other allies, they will see that the deal secures not only the future of the UK-US base, something that is not the case until this deal was signed, but secures it well into the next century, where he and I will no longer be in this place, but the UK-US base will be on Diego Garcia, still operating, securing our national interests.
Sir Gavin Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all know in this House how the People's Republic of China have been able to use commercial vessels, including fishing vessels, in order to be able to impinge on the way we operate. Can the Minister set out to the House how large an exclusion zone there is going to be around Diego Garcia to make sure that our interests and US interests are properly protected?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his serious question and the way he presented it. It is important that we have certainty about the security future relationship. That's why the treaty sets out very clearly security arrangements for the outer islands, which will prevent foreign nations from putting security forces or security apparatus on those islands. The full details will be in the treaty, but I think it is important to note that Mauritius was one of only 2 African countries that didn't join the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. Maintaining a strong relationship with them, especially in more contested times, is absolutely vital. That's what this deal helps to deliver.
Dr. Armstrong-Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister says that the US administration, outgoing Biden administration, is very keen on this deal, which may or may not be the case, but the British public plainly are not, and for very good reason, and see the payment of a dowry to Mauritius as rubbing salt into the wound. If the Minister isn't prepared to comment on the quantum that he has in mind, can he at least explain the structure of the costings that he is applying in order to come to the figure that he wishes to give Mauritius for taking on these islands?
I thank the former Minister for his question. As someone who served in the department that I now serve in, he will know that it is very normal to reveal the operating costs for overseas bases, but we do not, we did not reveal the government-to-government payments. That's standard procedure for his government and every government before. It remains the policy of this government, but this deal secures the future of the UK-US base, and I'm hopeful when the details come out, he will be able to understand why this secures it for so long, and hopefully he'll be able to back it.
Many more things.
Sir John Whittingham.
The Minister has said that he's not willing to give details of the financial arrangement, although he will be aware that the Mauritian Prime Minister has described the deal as a sellout. Can he at least give an assurance that the government will not commit to giving yet more money in order to get this deal through before the new US administration arrives in January?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his question. We think this is a good deal, and we're certain that when the details come out, then others will be able to take their judgment, but I think they will conclude it's a good deal. It secures the future of the UK-US base on Diego Garcia, which was the overriding objective when his party was in power, and they set out that because this secures the future of that base. We're glad that we have done so well into the next century, and that's an important step for UK and US national security.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister set out how he intends to implement safeguards against China establishing military capabilities and surveillance capacity in the British Indian Ocean territories?
That's an important question. It's one that I mentioned a few answers ago, but just to reassure the honourable gentleman that there will be safeguards in the treaty that detail that no foreign security forces will be able to set up on the outer islands, providing that security perimeter around Diego Garcia that we have sought and our US allies sought. That is why this is a good deal, because it secures not only the future of the operation of the base, but it also secures the future security around the base, and I'm hopeful when the details comes out he'll be able to see that for himself.
Alistair. Turn to a question asked but not answered this afternoon. If the Mauritian government's review demands more money, will the government pay up in order to save face?
I'm confident this is a good deal, and I think the Mauritian government will be looking at the deal that has been signed, and they will see it as a good deal. And our US friends know it's a good deal currently, and anyone looking at this deal in the future will see it as a good deal. It's a good deal because it achieves our #1 objective of securing the UK-US base on Diego Garcia well into the next century.
Charlie Chagos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend, the Shadow Secretary of State, alluded to the presumptive nominee Marco Rubio's comments, saying that this deal represents a serious threat to US national security. Does the Minister agree?
What I can say to the honourable gentleman is that all the representatives of the US security apparatus who have seen the detail of the deal back the deal. It is something that secures the future of the base. It allayed the US fears around the future of the base. And it's important to say, because there has been some barking from the front bench in relation to this, is the current situation with Diego Garcia is that base is not secure for the long term. There are questions over its long-term sovereignty. There is people building support against our sovereignty claim. This deal secures the long-term operation of that base well into the next century.
Jim Shah.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Having been one of those who, along with many others in this House, have vehemently opposed the ceding of Chagos Islands without even consultation to the residents, and having stood in solidarity with those who opposed this cessation, I'm anxious to ensure that the Americans are determined to take control. In turn, that we must offer support to them in this, and that we allow those residents who consider themselves British to be a part of this equation. And what steps has the FCDO taken to ensure that the US are aware of the strength of feeling opposing this decision by those from the Chagos Islands? Thank you very much.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. It's a serious one, and that's the reason why this deal not only allows the settling of some of the outer islands by the Chagosian communities, but it also allows visits to Diego Garcia for the Chagosian communities who were removed in a way that this government so deeply regrets in the past. I think the detail of this deal is good to secure our national security, US national security, but also makes important steps to recognising the pain that was suffered by Chagosian communities and take steps to remedy those.
That completes that urgent question. From bench turning over.